My name is Eric Skwarczynski, and you're listening to episode number 18 of Gut Reactions. Hello everybody, welcome to Gut Reactions. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you caught the last episode where I began this conversation about Jaws with Marbeth Skwarczynski, who is a literature teacher, history teacher. She also happens to be my mother, and we love being able to talk movies with each other. She's introduced me to tons of great movies in the genre and outside the genre, and we're here talking today in this continuation episode about Jaws 2. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Here we go. So, Jaws had a big cultural impact.
Yes, that's why it's a classic and it's why it's an important movie.
And since it was such a big hit culturally, it led to a lot of sequels. In my mind, there's only one sequel, and that's Jaws 2.
Jaws 2. The terror continues. In all the vast and unknown depths of the ocean, how could there have been only one?
Jaws 3 and 4 aren't worth really talking about.
They will be mentioned no more.
Yeah, we're not going to mention it anymore. So, anyway, so Jaws 2 is the only sequel I would define as good to Jaws. And I say that with confidence, not having seen all of Jaws 4, but enough to know that is the only. But, so Jaws was the first big horror summer franchise. It kind of started the whole idea of franchises in general. Paralleled next to Star Wars and Planet of the Apes. All of those kind of kicked off the idea of having a blockbuster event every couple years. So what are your thoughts on the sequels overall? And then we're going to dive right into Jaws 2.
I've only ever watched Jaws 1 and Jaws 2, so I can't give you any information on the other sequels.
Okay, that was quick.
Yeah.
What was your first introduction to Jaws 2?
You?
Was it? And that was shortly after watching the first Jaws, right?
No, it was a couple of years after.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But when we watched it, you set me up and you said, Mom, I want you to watch this and I want you to see if you can find the piece of art that is referenced in Jaws 2. So I was watching the screen very, very closely the whole time. And the only thing I could come up with was the shark attack of...
Watson
yes.
and the shark? Okay, go ahead.
Watson and the shark. That's the one I thought you were referring to, which is a pretty important painting. It's a British painting, so usually you have, for British paintings, it's mostly portraits. So this guy, when he had his portrait done, he had himself drawn naked and being attacked by a shark. He lost his arm in that shark attack. And so I figured that's the painting we were looking at, because it does happen after a boat wreck, and he's on a raft. And then when the whole thing was done, I said, I think I know which one it is. And I didn't remember the title then either, but I got my art history book out and I found it. Boom, there it is. And you're like, no. And I'm like, come on, And you said, no, it's Raft of the Medusa, which we had to look up. And I was like, oh, okay, I totally get this. I understood the Raft of the Medusa, after the Medusa was shipwrecked, and they basically got all of the planking together and tied it together to create this way to escape the ocean water.
Jesus, Holy Mary, Mother of Christ.
There's a famous painting called the Raft of the Medusa, which shows survivors on a raft struggling against the forces of the sea. And I think the intent was to get some of that into the movie. And who knows art history as well as anyone, I think, was familiar with that painting.
The contribution to Jaws 2 was largely the result of Janot Schwartz's direction. He gave it a bit of sophistication, visual sophistication.
And I was really proud of you for that. Sometimes we watch movies together and I'm just like, darn, my kid's really smart. Look at him.
I just watched behind the scenes and they said, and I looked at them, okay, good.
But there's a second part to that little bit of a story. Later that year, I had the opportunity to go to the Louvre.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
And I was really excited about that. There was a couple pieces I really wanted to see, but while we were up at one of the little kiosks where you can buy like souvenirs and stuff, I was buying some postcards. And I noticed there was a postcard that had the raft of the Medusa on it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I know exactly what this painting is. And Eric would love this. I've got to get this. And we asked the person at the kiosk, where is this painting? And all they did was point around the corner. I was like 10 feet from it. And it is huge. Yeah. It is a gigantic painting. And we went and I'm like, wow, look at that. And your dad's like, Eric would like this. And now he'd probably think, yeah, Eric would like this. It's as gory as it can be.
So do you think, okay, I'm going to ask this 2-part question.
Sure.
Do you think Jaws 2 works as a film? And then do you think Jaws 2 works as a sequel to Jaws? And I wrote a lot of notes about Jaws 2 because I thought you would like, I was wondering if you didn't like it because then I was ready to just defend its honor. But, and I will say the first time that I watched it, I enjoyed it. I appreciated Jaws, but I enjoyed Jaws 2 more.
Really?
But it's because it gave, at that time I was into like, I was like, what's the coolest effects? And Jaws 2 delivered more shark.
Okay.
At least I felt like at the time, but rewatching, I don't think it delivers much more. But it was more complex, so it appealed to the complex in its okay, here's 6 boats getting attacked instead of 1. It's more Michael Bay. There's more action.
Oh, man.
No, it's more...
If you want me to be on your side, you do not reference Michael Bay.
But it's more... There's more... If you want more action with the shark, Jaws 2 goes more rapidly into... Here's a quick set piece, here's a quick set piece, here's a quick set piece. Versus Jaws 1 is set piece, and then character building, set piece. It's more meaningful in the first Jaws.
Yes.
I'm not saying this now. I'm saying at the time it was... Okay, I want to see more people get eaten by the shark than I saw in the first movie.
Okay.
And Jaws 2 hits more of that teen slasher vibe a lot harder.
There you go.
So
that's exactly how I see Jaws 2. I see a teen slasher movie.
And is it a good one?
With a second movie embedded in it with a really caring dad.
Okay.
You see more development in his character, I think, in this one, where he faces his fears in a way that he never would have done in the first movie.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first movie, he didn't want to go in that water. Not for anything. In the second movie, he's like, no, I've done this before, and I survived, but I'm going to face that fear, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect my family. I like one better.
Yeah, me too. No, and there's no contest. Now, being a more refined film critic, there's no comparison. Like, if Jaws 2 was its own movie, it would probably be scored higher in my mind, but... Following on the coattails of Jaws,
right?
That's like having, prime rib and then a hot dog. The hot dog is good, but not compared to the prime rib.
Ugh. Okay. Talking to a vegetarian here. But I look at Jaws 1 as a grown-up movie and Jaws 2 as a teenage movie.
Okay, that's fine.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But do you think it works at what it's trying to be?
Yes. What it's trying to be, it works.
Okay. Because I don't see how they could have done it any differently.
Okay.
And I know the original idea was they were going to do, for Jaws 2, they were going to do a prequel about Quint's time on the yeah. Ooh. About him on the Indianapolis?
Yeah.
Okay, I always want to say Indiana, but the Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that sharky looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red, and in spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces.
I am so glad they didn't do that because I think seeing it would have lessened the impact of him talking about it because your mind fills in the blank of what happened. I like what they did, and I think they understood they had to go bigger and crazier for the sequel. Even though in retrospect, there's crazier shark movies, but I think at the time it was a smart way to go. You get a young, relatively young French director that has a crazy vision, give him a little bit of money and say, go for it. And considering all the troubles they had on the behind the scenes of both movies, but especially too with people leaving the project, coming on the project, the fact that it comes out a decent movie is pretty great.
Okay.
And I think it does hold up, and I think I think it's just a movie you have to watch spread out from watching Jaws and just say, I know what this is. Mm-hmm. It's Universal saying we want a Jaws sequel this year.
Right.
So come out and do it. I think it works really well. I'm going to go ahead and kick off what I like most. I was I was disappointed and I was excited because last night when we rewatched it, there were things I noticed where I was like, oh, it could have been tighter there. It could have, Spielberg did this better.
Yeah.
And, you know, the nitpicks you start doing on a movie, the more you watch it, it doesn't hold up to as much scrutiny as I wish it would with my memories of watching it in high school.
Well, when you're in high school, you're a completely different viewer than you are when you're in high school.
It's your first time watching anything. So, you know, so I'm watching that devoid of having seen some of Kubrick's films or some of Spielberg's other great work or, you know, or even really understanding a lot of storytelling techniques and things. So, you know, there's a reason like you love Transformers and you love, or you love, you know, every James Bond movie indiscriminately, or you love, you know, or every Spider-Man or superhero movie. It's because you're not fully formed yet as a viewer. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you said that, not me.
No, but it is true. I mean, and there's things like there are movies that still hold up. Like Bad Boys 2 is still a perfect movie. Okay. So, no, but you know what I mean?
I feel the same way about the 6-hour-long Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah.
It is a perfect miniseries.
Even though it's not perfect.
It's not so perfect.
It is perfect. But no, you're developing as a film goer. It doesn't matter if you're young or if you're old. The more movies you watch, the more some movies that you used to like are going to start dipping down on your list. The more some movies are going to move up as you revisit them. So anyway, watching Jaws 2, there were some things that bothered me, like mainly with pacing and with, I felt like it wasn't so much with the actual action sequences, if you can call them that. It was more some of the character moments. So let me, I guess I can phrase it this way. Spielberg is really good at doing conversation where people talk over each other naturally.
Yes.
And I feel like this director, it felt a lot more scripted.
Right.
So it was, why are you going out there? I want to go out there. Well, you're not going out there, you know, and it was, instead of Spielberg who would have these conversations where 6 people are all talking over each other and you're getting what you need to do. Like Close Encounters, the way that movie opens on the family of Richard Dreyfuss, and they're all sitting there talking and the kids are bashing each other with dolls and he's saying, what movie are we going to see? And the kid wants to go golfing and it feels very real.
Yes.
And I felt like Jaws 2 feels like a movie where Jaws you feel like you're just in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I get it.
That was my big issue. And honestly, the flaws of that movie still aren't... I like the movie more than probably most people, but it's because I think it does work so well as being what it is.
Okay.
So, and then I'll go into my only other dislike, really, aside from pacing, was I felt like Lorraine... that's the name of the movie, right? The actress... Or is the actress's name?
I think
Lorraine?
the actress's name
I wrote down Lorraine in my notes. Oh, Ellen Brody. So Lorraine Gary's character, Ellen Brody. I felt like she's not really done justice in the movie.
No.
She's such an integral part, even though she's about the same amount of screen time. I felt like her character is so important in the first film.
Yes.
And I feel like in this one, she is there and she's still doing a great job in her role. I feel like her character, it's like they almost deleted scenes or something because I feel like in the first part of the movie, they play up that she's looking, I'm like, oh, what's my husband doing? He's really being weird. Where if the events that happened in the first movie happened, I would think she would be like, you know, maybe because she wasn't there or something, but I would feel like she would be like, well, my husband's seen it.
Right.
And she takes on that persona in the rest of the movie. Oh, he's doing his job. Oh, he's doing... but the first half of the movie, she's looking at him like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you acting so weird? And then the end of the movie, she's being the defensive wife.
Right.
I just wish they would have played... Because she just basically goes from, he's a weirdo, to, you know... It was just a weird... And the whole...
When her child is in danger, that's when she flips.
Yeah. But even when he's fired... I don't know. It was just a weird mix. I never noticed she's kind of weak in the movie, not because her acting, but just because her character is just not given that same breathe. I think Roy Scheider's character is given great room, but even then, the writing tends toward, okay, here's his monologue about, you know, or, you know, I'm going to make sure something like that never happens again.
Larry, huh? Come on, let's just forget it. He won't listen. It's obvious the man has made up his mind.
You bet your life I've made up my mind. But I'm telling you, and I'm telling everybody at this table, that that's a shark. And I know what a shark looks like because I've seen one up close. And you better do something about this one because I don't intend to go through that hell again.
In those moments that are the trailer moments, and a lot of characters get those, like the old lady at the dock that says, you know, they were just having a great time. And then, you know, and it's these moments you're like, I see where Spielberg would have taken that and either the way he shot it or I don't know what.
Right.
He would have put that Spielberg magic dust on it and made it work more than, it cuts for a great trailer, but it just feels odd the way that some of the characters deliver dialogue. As far as likes, the score is better than the first movie.
Okay.
John Williams takes, and I talked about this on my underrated horror soundtrack episode. John Williams took his score and just made it so much big. He understood the movie's going to be bigger. He added a lot more horns. He added a bigger orchestra to it. He made it when they're out sailing, having fun. You feel it through the music. The scary sequences are bigger and louder. That's the one thing that does improve is the score is super solid in this movie. I like that it opens with a connection to the first movie. That's kind of obvious. I just like that here's the boat. Oh, it's Orca. I like that stuff. That whole sequence of the divers is kind of cool and scary.
I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah,
I love that part.
The noise of them screaming through the air tubes and all that.
I don't understand how the camera can keep flashing. Is that possible?
Well, if it's bouncing, I could see it do that. Okay. My flash pops out when I drop my camera, so.
Okay. I just meant it keeps taking pictures after the attack. Can you?
Yeah, but
is that automatic? Can you do
when
that?
It hits the floor, it does.
Okay.
But so I like the connection there. Let me see. What's the other kind of a la carte things? Because I have one thing that carries through the movie that I never noticed before. The parasailing sequence is cool.
Yes.
It's very suspenseful.
Yes.
I think it's as suspenseful. That scene and the opening are just as suspenseful as anything in the first movie, I think. I like the skiing scene, which is great.
Yes.
And I love, because I remember reading the Jaws 2 novel, because there was a while I liked movie novelizations a lot. I love the shot, like the cover art of the big shark behind the girl skiing. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Even though it's not quite like that in the movie.
Right.
And the other scares or action moments that I really like is when Eddie is dragged by the shark and thuds against the boat. And the girl that's in the boat, I don't know her name off the top of my head.
Tina.
But the actress's name.
Oh.
But she gives 150% when she
really
gets
does.
pulled out of the boat.
Right.
And she looks terrified.
Right.
But him hitting the boat is a moment where some of this movie's effects don't hold up because they show the shark a little too much. You can see it's not a real shark. But like him getting dragged and hitting the boat feels very Spielberg.
But that goes straight back to the beginning, the opening of the first Jaws, where that whole quick, fast, shaking the victim and moving her quickly through the water.
And
you can see it.
Seeing the perspective shot of it's over the boat and you can see the shark going underneath and then grabbing him. She's saying, swim fast or something. That whole scene is really solid. So that's all aesthetic stuff, but I love, and I noticed something that the director, whose name I can't pronounce, Skwarczynski, whatever.
Sure.
He
Eric
did
Skwarczynski.
I noticed a motif that he drags through the movie that I never noticed before, and it's something that I know he did because he's the type of guy that said, "Oh, there's this painting, and I want to." It's one of those things where I know it wasn't an accident he did this. So the opening scene of the movie, when he's going into the ribbon cutting ceremony,
yes,
there's a scene where he talks about the mayor's talking. He says, "Oh, this money tree was donated by this businessman," and it seems like just small talk about whatever, but there's a very specific shot. And it's the first. There's probably more in the movie, but the director shoots through the money tree to the mayor, so the mayor's surrounded by money.
Oh, that's good.
So it's a framing device, literally, for his character of the mayor's corrupt and influenced by money, which we already know from the first movie. But he instantly reestablishes it without having a scene where he says, he could have had Brody sit down and say, "Look, he's just here for the money."
Right.
He shows it by framing him literally in green money through a tree.
That's good.
Then there's another moment where he frames Brody, and this is when Brody goes to the photo developer, and the photo developer turns when he turns on the light, the shot of Brody, it's him in the center of the frame, and then the photos are hanging above Brody like teeth.
Oh,
so there's these white jagged pictures on the edge of the frame,
man.
and then the lights dim and go to that yellow kind of uneasy lighting. But I think that was something else intentional, because the way he's centered in the teeth, there's trays on the bottom and then there's photos on the top.
Did you think it was weird that they kind of went with a yellow lighting instead of red? I thought they should have
done red, but I think that would have been on the nose too. So I don't know.
It's Jaws 2. Yeah. I think you can be on the nose.
Yeah. But so I noticed that, and then the last thing I noticed was there's a scene, and this is one of the other things where I said, "Oh, this is intentional." They play up that he's smoking more as a sign of stress.
Yes.
Which they get a little on the nose by keep saying like, "Oh, that's your third smoke," or whatever.
Right.
And then they still have witty dialogue of, "Well, try a donut," instead of the cigarette. But there's a scene, and it looks like it could just be, on set he improvised and stuck his tongue out in a mirror. But if you look at the shot where he's standing in the kitchen and they do a close-up of Brody's face and he sticks his tongue out at the mirror, he's framed by the mirror in a kind of a triangle mirror, and then there's a tray underneath it that has all these matches. So it's a way of showing it's the screenwriting thing of don't say someone's an alcoholic, show they're an alcoholic.
Right.
Underneath his face are hundreds of matches all stacked under each other, stuffed into the mirror, showing that over the last however many days it's been, he's smoked. You're knowing for each match he smoked a cigarette.
Right.
So it's smarter than showing an ashtray. And then what's a bummer is after that impressive framing device, then they go outside and there's like 6 beer cans in a perfect pile by his car, and that's so overblown and he's an alcoholic now.
He's not necessarily an alcoholic. He just drank a lot when he got fired.
But it was so on the nose, and I was like, and I don't believe Brody's character would be drinking in his car. Maybe sitting out in his car, but I don't believe that he would have driven drunk. Because he's such an upright character. Right. So I thought the matches under him were perfect, but I noticed that framing device and picked it up in those 3 scenes, and I'm sure the director put it in other moments as well. But I've talked a lot about my likes about the movie. What are your likes and dislikes?
Okay. My likes are, I like the fact that Brody goes. Actually, I'm gonna start with my dislikes because honestly,
just get him out of the way.
Yeah, get him out of the way.
What's your overall out of 5 shark teeth? How many shark teeth do you give this movie?
I'm gonna give it a 3. And you know me, that's generous for me.
I gave it a 3.5. Okay, that's fine. Or no, I think I gave it a 3.5. So I don't love this movie.
Ooh, you used to.
I mean, well,
you grew up a little bit.
I don't love this movie, but there's so much about it that I love that I will keep rewatching it over and over again.
Okay.
So anyway,
that's fair.
So 3.5 for me, 3 for you.
Yes,
we're pretty close.
Pretty close.
I just have those because the director did these little things. It makes it better than Jaws 3,
Mine is about story writing.
Yeah.
You have all these teenagers getting together and nobody ever really steps up and becomes a leader.
Yeah.
There are flashes of leadership, but nobody ever takes it a little further.
Here's our body count.
Right, and I don't like that. Which is, I want to see people stand up and be a leader.
Well, it's funny though because for having that many teens, the amount that actually die is pretty small.
Right.
It's more for the amount. I guess the scope of the peril is big, but it's weird because I noticed that too. I thought, well, okay, it's more a slasher setup, but I was like, man, not as many teens die as I thought. It's really only about 3, maybe.
There's
three.
not that many.
But it is weird that there's no definitive head of this group.
Right.
It's also weird that they're not developed. Like Friday the 13th characters, there's something flimsy in every Friday the 13th plot about why they're going back.
Okay.
But I feel like there is a lot of character development that happens, whether we want to say it's flimsy or not. You very definitively know, okay, that's the couple that's known for this. This is the potheads. These are the... Whereas this one, it's a waste because there's some great actors.
There are, but nobody has any serious character development at all.
The kids, and I think if they had, you would have had a way better... Because, like I said, and we know this because one of the actors went on to headline Christine and gives a really good performance in that movie. But it's weird because the kids, when they are supposed to act scared or they're supposed to be funny, I laughed at where they're supposed to be funny. They look traumatized and terrified, and they play it really well. There's no there's none of the actors where I was like, they're a really bad actor.
Right.
So, yeah, if they'd given them good material, those kids could have killed that movie.
I feel like there was so much holding them back because Brody's supposed to be the hero. Yeah. He's supposed to be the dad that comes in and saves the day.
And they're supposed to be the dumb teens that go out. Yeah.
But there is no reason you can't have both.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really disappointed in the character of Brody's son. I mean, the older son.
Yeah.
He has zero ethics, zero responsibility. I mean, his dad is pushing him to get a job. And I don't think it's all because he's afraid of his son being in the water. I think that's a very large chunk of it. But I think there's also, dad sees a weakness there.
Yeah.
And dad's going to try and fix that weakness. But the kid is just so... And then the girl, she sees, do you do everything your parents tell you to? And she also exposes a weakness there. Not that he is brave enough to say, I'm going to stand on my own without my parents' authority. The fact that she knows that she can sway him.
Yeah.
Because... It's not about, I'm going to stand strong. I'm going to, have my own will.
He just
I'm
picks
going
a different
to be strong.
leader to follow.
Yeah, he does. He's just he's a follower. And it's really sad because here's a kid who has a strong father and in the movie a strong mother, but he himself has no strength whatsoever. Yeah. He's just a pouty little baby. And I get really frustrated by that.
Well, and again, I think because this doesn't happen, it wasn't like he was super young in the first film. I mean, he was pretty young.
He was like 14.
Yeah, he was old enough to
maybe 13.
To really get, he saw this stuff happen.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same flaw. I noticed that too. It's the same flaw that was with his wife, is that you guys all remember the last movie, right? Like you remember the very severe danger. Wasn't
But it was 4 years before. So it's 4 years of,
he remembers, it's the pond and the sharks in there. Wasn't he the one that went into shock?
Yes.
So you had this close encounter. I feel like they should have played on, he's the kind of slow friend to jump into anything because he's seen I wish they would have had a little bit of his dad in him.
Right.
Where he says, guys, I've seen the shark too. And they say, come on, you were, they could have had a whole scene where, one of the kids says, come on, you were a little kid.
Yeah.
Any fish looks big when you're that small, and
well, wouldn't all of those kids have been through all that? Yeah. And it's like they've completely forgotten about everything that happened.
Well, but see, I would give that the slack of, okay, well, that is 4 years later. Think about, you hear, a kid did this or a kid was killed doing this. And everyone that's not an immediate friend, I just don't, I don't know. I just didn't buy that the family would be so, I get the little kid, but he seems to be given the most connection to the dad.
Yeah.
Where I feel like the little kid would be the one to be like, what are you talking about? What shark?
Well, I can understand it from the teenage point of view, with the stupid stuff that kids do every generation. It's not a new thing, the Tide Pods and the condom sniffing. That's this generation's little issue. But every generation has done something incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
And every teenager thinks it can't happen to them. that death will not happen to them. But there needs to be, when you see death happening in front of you, there's a moment there where you go, oh my goodness, I could be next. At that point, that's when those kids should have risen up and said, okay, now it's time to get a leader. And you don't do it by saying, okay, now we need a leader. We don't take a vote. It's just the person that has the strongest personality steps up
to the top.
He does. And there was nothing. There was nothing going on. The closest you got was the one kid threatening to beat the snot out of the little boy by saying, you come over here right now or I'm going to, That was a moment of, I've got to be tough because I love this child.
Yeah.
And then there was the issue of the girl who was always taking that child with her under her wing, and then she dies right in front of him. Yeah. Which, by the way, that kid should have been a puddle of nothing for the rest of the movie. You just saw the one person who's nice to you get eaten right in front of you. There should be zero, oh, there's my dad, after that.
And then you had the kids that take the boat back with Alex in the back. So there's moments where you saw what could have happened.
Right.
I mean, I just wish they would have maybe subverted the audience expectations and had either Brody die and the kids save themselves. If they would have had Brody's kids die and confirm everything he feared. I wish they would have had, the mayor's son die. There's a lot of things, like if the mayor's son had died, it would have changed the dynamic between, you could have had the happy ending of Brody getting his job back and about, which the movie's not about, but it would have changed the mayor's perspective. There's just so much where you see if the movie could have gone this way and made itself, instead of being it's a fun way to spend the night watching it, could have made it a Jaws 2 where you get that depth.
Terrified.
Okay,
what did you think about the orca on the beach after they already brought in the orca shipwreck?
Orca shipwreck?
The orca is the ship that owned. Which I thought was brilliant, but then they bring an orca on the beach as well, and you're like...
I think that was just to show scope more than anything. I don't think it was a reference to the actual
You don't
ship.
think it was because don't orcas eat sharks?
Yeah, but I think that's where you're showing scope. You know what I mean? I think it's like showing Jurassic Park. It's showing, this dinosaur is huge. It gets eaten by a bigger dinosaur.
Okay.
It's just a scale thing. Okay, and then because we're pushing our time limit here.
Okay.
So one thing and I guess it's just do you agree or disagree? People love talking about scariest movies, most thrilling movies, or movies that kept them up at night. I like talking about effective horror, and so by effective I mean something that you carry with you and causes either a very personal fear or, in this case, a national fear or worldwide fear.
Right.
And I would argue that the most effective horror films are, I think, almost neck and neck for me would be Jaws and the Final Destination series. But it's because every time you drive behind a truck that has stuff on the back of it, you expect it to come through your windshield and kill you. But I would argue that Jaws might be the most effective horror movie ever made, in the sense of it's the reason to this day, even people that haven't seen the movie, the effect that movie has had, the ripple effect, if you will, of that movie has, made generation after generation scared to go in the water.
Out of the water! Out of the water now! Everybody out!
There's people to this day that will not go to a beach because of Jaws.
Right.
Whether directly or indirectly. So I guess my question is, what is the most effective horror movie ever made? And do you think it's Jaws?
I think Jaws is without thinking about it, because you didn't give me time to think about it ahead of time, I would say Jaws.
Sorry, let me rephrase it. What's the most effective horror movie and why is it Jaws?
I think Jaws was very effective because even in as a junior higher who hadn't seen the movie but heard about the movie, you still think about it.
Yeah.
I did actually see a couple of sharks up close in Cuba. One was a hammerhead, but it was dead. But we knew, hey, there's sharks in the water. And then the other one was a little tiny baby shark that was in a tide pool and then got swept out. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, whoa, did you see that? It was just, it was a miniature. It was about the size of my hand. And that was it. So the idea that there's stuff down there that you can't explain, you can't expect. Mm-hmm. When I go to the beach now, I do like getting in the water. I do. Well, see, when I was younger, I loved getting in the water. Every beach we went to, I was like in the water, especially on the East Coast where the water's warm because you have that warm current going back by there. And then you go to California where it's freezing cold, but we still go out in the water, we still play, but at the same time, I feel like I'm constantly pushing down this irrational fear of stuff in the water, even though it's not really that irrational because there really are sharks in the water.
Yeah. But it's also statistically very low chance.
It's very low chance, but still, you can't help it. You have to push that fear down. You have to push it down, push it down, push it down. I mean, seriously, pushing down fear is the only way I can really get through my life. I have no problems with horror movies. I'm not really afraid of horror movies. Yeah. They're on the screen. They make me feel something. That's okay. I'm fine with that. But I see a creepy crawly that I don't want to have anything, near me. I go to the beach and I get seaweed wrapped around my foot. Yeah, there's some definite fear being pushed down at that moment because you just can't help but think, oh, what if it's something else?
Yeah.
And I love going to the beach, but I don't really like the idea of thinking about what could be below that surface, which is what Jaws is really all about.
Yeah.
What's lurking beneath the surface.
Even the surface of the community.
Yes, the surface of the community, the surface of the
Which now you're
character.
Scared. If the sharks don't kill you, the power-hungry mayor's going to kill you.
Yes.
Well, anyway, okay. Well, I think that wraps up the conversation. Okay. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Gut Reactions. I'd encourage you to connect with us on Facebook, both in our group and by liking the Gut Reactions page. You can also connect on Instagram and Twitter. Be sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps us out immensely with our rankings. Until next time, goodbye.